I'm Elaine Reyes at the United Nations headquarters in New York, and this is UN Insider.
Coming up.
Nuclear installations are coming under fire, and nuclear safety is being compromised.
Calls for a ceasefire and a return to diplomacy as Israel and Iran trade attacks that threaten to snowball into a larger conflict. A new government facing familiar challenges, where things stand after Syria's leadership change.
We are the best people to transmit the data from the ground.
Pushing for inclusion and change, a conversation on indigenous communities and the fight against climate change. Next.
The UN is calling for an urgent de-escalation of tensions between Israel and Iran. Last week, Israel launched attacks targeting Iranian nuclear facilities and prominent figures. The leader of Iran's Revolutionary Guard was killed, along with nuclear scientists and the politician overseeing the nuclear talks with the U.S. Iran launched retaliatory attacks, and now there are concerns about the possibility of a wider regional conflict.
Military escalation threatens lives, increases the chance of a radiological release with serious consequences for people and the environment, and delays indispensable work towards a diplomatic solution.
That's Rafael Mariano Grossi, head of the International Atomic Energy Agency. Just one of many voices urging Israel and Iran to cease their respective attacks. Hundreds of people have been killed in the last week, and the U.S. is considering involvement, issuing an ultimatum to Iran. Secretary General Antonio Guterres says he is profoundly alarmed by the situation. And here in New York, we also heard from ambassadors of both countries on the escalating tensions.
We will not go into details, but we pushed back the nuclear program in the last few days. And we will continue with our efforts to push back the program. It's not a short operation. It's not similar to what we did in the 80s in Iraq when we had to attack one reactor, or in 2005 when we took care of the reactor in Syria. It's a much more challenging operation, and it takes time.
Israel has committed a blatant act of aggression against the sovereign and territorial integrity of Iran. Its relentless campaign of atrocities against our people continues unabated. This is a serious violation of the United Nations Charter and fundamental principles of international law. These attacks crossed all red lines.
Shu Deja is monitoring developments inside the UN and has more on our top story. Deja.
Yes, Elaine. There's no doubt that this week, even from thousands of miles away, the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran has remained at the center of our reporting. As tensions rise, the prominent representatives of both countries took to the podium to address reporters, each accusing each other of killing civilians and violating international law. Neither, however, responded clearly to my question about a potential U.S. intervention.
Iran will continue to act within the framework of international law. We will defend ourselves lawfully and proportionately, but it is primary responsibility of the Council to maintain international peace and security. The Council must act now to stop the genocidal aggressor from committing further atrocities against our people. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Ambassador, you mentioned U.S. involvement. Is Iran prepared for a direct involvement? What is your expectation of U.S. Army might get involved in this round of escalation?
Well, that's a question for the U.S. But I would say that you see the chance in Tehran. It's not only death to Israel; it's also death to America. So Iran is a threat not only to Israel, and I think many countries realize that. And you can hear it on private talks with many PRs here, that they're actually thankful for Israel of fulfilling this task.
When Israeli Ambassador Danny Danoon claimed that many prominent representatives here had privately thanked Israel for its operation, I followed up with some UN officials. Did they, in fact, thank Israel for launching the strike? As PGA being one of them saying thank you to the Israeli ambassador.
Najee, I think I just told you what the PGA has said with regard to what is happening in Israel and Iran in terms of calling for both sides to exercise restraints.
Has the Secretary General reached out for Israeli mission to say thank you, to be grateful of that?
I assume that's a rhetorical question, so I don't have to answer it. Yes.
China's permanent representative Fu Cong responded to our questions by calling for an immediate ceasefire.
We are very concerned about the possible escalation, and I think that it is the view of the overwhelming majority of the international community that we should see an immediate ceasefire and the protection of civilians. And then the nuclear issue can only be resolved through negotiation. So I think in that spirit, the Security Council needs to take some concrete actions in that respect.
On Friday morning, at Iran's request, the Security Council convened again to address this situation. As expected, Iran and Israel traded accusations, while most member states emphasized the urgent need for de-escalation. The same message came from Secretary General Antonio Guterres. In a statement, he said he remains profoundly alarmed by the ongoing military escalation between Israel and Iran, and reiterated his call for an immediate ceasefire. How much does the Secretary General worry about the possible intervention by the U.S. to knock even deeper nuclear facility out in Iran?
He's very concerned, and his strong appeal is to avoid any further internationalization of this conflict.
We focused on the Israeli-Iranian conflict. What about Gaza?
What we need is not to have more wars, to expand wars. What we need is a ceasefire to stop, everything, especially, to have ceasefire, permanent ceasefire in the Gaza Strip.
Also this week, the Security Council had a high-level debate on poverty, underdevelopment, and conflict, implications for the maintenance of international peace and security. The Secretary General stressed that lasting peace is impossible without sustainable development.
Sustainable peace requires sustainable development. The flames of conflict are too often lit and fed by persistent poverty and growing inequalities.
Oh, and one final note. Starting next week through September, the original copy of the UN Charter will be on public display in the visitors' lobby. According to Article 111 of the Charter, the present Charter, of which Chinese, French, Russian, English, and Spanish texts are equally authentic, shall remain deposited in the archives of the government of the United States of America. The document, on loan from the U.S. National Archives, is now on rare display, a once-in-a-decade opportunity to see this foundational text in person. And that's all from me. Back to you, Elaine.
Shudaja, thanks. It's been 6 months since Syria's stunning leadership shift. A new government is in place, but there are still questions about the country's future as it tries to emerge from more than a decade of conflict. Here's Joyce Masuya, Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs.
While the reduction in conflict and growing engagement with international partners are opening new prospects for investing in Syria's future, we must not forget that 3/4 of the population still need humanitarian relief right now. Security remains volatile in parts of the country, including the coast, the south, and the northeast, where attacks continue to affect civilians and humanitarian operations. Over 7 million people remain displaced, including many newly uprooted by recent violence.
This week marks World Refugee Day. There are more than 122 million forcibly displaced people around the world. That figure has nearly doubled in the last decade. And the UN's refugee agency is facing major cuts. Funding shortfalls have led UNHCR to trim global staffing by 30%. The agency says its funding levels will match those of a decade ago, despite the surge in refugee numbers. Let's take a look at some of the other issues on the UN's agenda.
The current trajectory of escalating conflict and blatant disregard for international human rights and humanitarian law is indefensible. Civilians are deliberately attacked, parties to conflict starve and rape as weapons of war, life-saving humanitarian aid is obstructed, and humanitarian aid workers are targeted.
Human Rights Chief Volker Turk delivered a global update before the latest session of the UN Human Rights Council. UNHCR found civilian deaths have surged by more than 40% in the last year. UN agencies are calling for Israeli forces to stop using lethal force near aid convoys and food distribution sites in Gaza. The UN is calling for independent investigations into several shootings near aid stations.
We identify 5 countries or territories of highest concern. This is Sudan, South Sudan, Palestine, Mali, and Haiti. And conflict is driving very high levels of acute food insecurity.
A new report pinpoints countries at highest risk of extreme hunger and starvation in the coming months. The report says urgent humanitarian action and de-escalation of conflicts could help alleviate the crises.
Coming up.
There's a tipping point that where people are mentioning, but for us, we've seen that because we live there.
UN Insider.
I see a country on the move.
There's my opportunity.
Is it good to change so fast?
Yes, but it's a challenge.
We have one foot in the future.
But we never forget our past.
We need to talk to one another.
And listen.
More than 1 billion voices telling their stories. Rediscovering China, only on CGTN.
Thousands of people from around the world are gathered in Bonn, Germany for meetings that will set the stage for the next UN climate conference in Brazil. The climate talks kicked off Monday. They're designed to advance the agreements made at COP29 in Azerbaijan and lay the groundwork for COP30, which opens in November. Climate change affects us all, but it often has an outsized impact on certain areas. Indigenous communities are often affected. I sat down with Juan Carlos Hintiak, Executive Secretary for the Global Alliance of Territorial Communities. So tell us about your people, the Shuar, and what you have experienced, witnessed firsthand over the years when it comes to climate and the impact on your home.
My people, the Shuar people, we were living in the rainforest for many years, for centuries. Many changes happened in the last, for the last couple of many years, but realistically speaking, we are in the urgent moment. There's a tipping point that where people are mentioning, but for us, we've seen that because we live there. We are the best people to transmit the data from the ground, but the changes is in different ways. When we hunt animals, there's a period of time we have animals, sometimes the skin of the animals is not too fat, because for many reasons, what's happening with the floration for the fruits, everything is changing. So some seasons in the year, sometimes we can see that there's too much rain or too much the heated That's what there are many cases in the Amazonia basin, but not too much in my region. But it's getting too dry. So that's why we call it the urgency. So the elders say, this is not right. I mean, we know that. And then I need to connect and mention about the externalities, about the deforestation, continue the bad policies, deforestations, illegal logging, the mining, the contamination of the river. Also, it's not helping, it's contributing to get more destroyed.
So you're looking at climate financing and a better way to help these communities and these biodiverse areas. It's still pretty fragmented. Tell us about this project that you are trying to lead in getting away from the conventional way of financing, like donations, aid. You want sustainable financial commitments and independence to manage the funds. Can you explain that for us?
We need to emphasize that this challenge, why our voices is important, because the rainforest and the tropics contributes with the ecosystems to cool the planet. People is living in this ecosystem, not just the flowers or the animals, people, human beings. People not contacted with this society, also living there, many groups. So it's all right to mention these people who are protecting, managing these ecosystems. So the initiatives that we are working together with Brazil, was going to be launched at COP30. Any initiative that connect with us, for example, injustice about a lot of money, there is a lot in the war, but how much percentage is going to the ground, to the real people? They need this kind of money for keep protecting, keep living there. The leaderships, the people from the organization, from the rainforest, the Global Alliance, we bring the voice in COP26, when the UK was doing this big launch of 1.7 billion for indigenous people, local community. We applaud and we receive that pledge. But that is why many of the elders, they were bringing concerns and real demands from the ground, because it was very unfair. Big money getting in the bureaucracy, disappearing the intermediary, is not coming to the indigenous people. That is why we create this initiative. We are not here for money. We are here because this is for life. We are giving life to the world. We are giving life for the air, for the cool. So we need to recognize our efforts, initiatives. And money has to be very well used for the philanthropy, for the donors directly on the ground.
So then tell us about the Tropical Forest Forever facility and how that ties into everything.
When President Lula was elected, also create this space, good dialogues with indigenous people. You can see these dynamics, and this is opportunity also to approach one of the important governments that is going to host COP30 for the war in context of climate change. But Global Alliance is not just following climate change, it's following Convention Biodiversity, CBD, is following the desertification. So we want to combine this opportunity and place in one COP30. We cannot separate. We talk holistic. We are integral. We cannot talking about just forest or water or the corner. No, all is holistic.
Juan Carlos, you were actually on the short list for a Nobel Peace Prize recently. I want to get your thoughts about the significance about that, how that makes you feel, and do you feel that the world is finally hearing indigenous voices like yours?
This kind of nomination is not for me, it's for the people. It's for indigenous people, for the elders, for the women, or for the youth, for the hope. So they can do much better. So the only planet we have, Mother Earth, we call. We are part of this element. We are the tree, we are the forest. That's why we, as indigenous people from the shore, all the groups also, we have special connections with the nature. Some people identify with animals. Some people identify with the water. This is sometimes difficult to transmit, but at least mentioning this kind of opportunity is very important. Don't lose the hopes.
Juan Carlos Santiago, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Coming up.
If we don't change our habits now, there may be no water tomorrow.
UN Insider.
Again, he can holding guns. Word protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
Excellency, thank you very much for your time. What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Tuesday marked the World Day to combat desertification and drought. Colombia hosted international events marking the day. In 2024, the South American country saw its worst drought in 30 years. Many Colombians now view water as a precious resource they can't afford to waste.
Right now, I have my soapy water ready to wash the dishes.
Bogota citizen Monica Alba says her family and friends call her cheap because of how dedicated she is to saving water.
Every drop counts. It is money and energy. I've always believed that teaching people to save water isn't about being cheap. It's not about saving money, it's about the future. If we don't change our habits now, there may be no water tomorrow. I hope to leave a mark on my family and set an example.
The average Bogota citizen consumes 76 liters of water daily around their household. Flushing the toilet once alone takes up to 5 to 10 liters, depending on the toilet in this region. Showers can use up to 10 times that. In a post-COVID pandemic era, water usage is high, as families are encouraged to wash, and keep germs at bay. But did you know that Bogota is actually lowest on Latin America's scale of daily water usage? As a comparison, citizens in Mexico City use a reported 310 liters of water a day. Citizens in countries like Japan and Spain average around 360 liters a day, but the city of Buenos Aires, Argentina, has alarming usage, with their highs reported at 600 liters a day. It's concerning that a city like Bogota, with such low water usage, is going through a water crisis, especially when Colombia is the third most water-rich country in the world, according to the World Bank. Monica Alba is mindful of Colombia's natural resources. While washing the dishes, she treats water like a prized possession that she uses sparingly, a practice she continues at the restaurant where she works as a waitress.
Entonces, como no es mío, pues no les puedo inculcar porque pues no soy la dueña. Pero yo coloco.
It's not my restaurant, so I can't enforce the same habits as at home.
Reciclo, desmugro. Entonces, esa se va para lo que es para lavar los traperos, la utilizo.
But I still try to recycle as much water as possible, like using it to mop the floors.
Lo que tengo que hacer porque a mí me toca entregar la cocina limpia.
I do what I can while I'm here, and at home I'm even stricter about it.
Entonces, mientras que yo estoy ahí, yo ayudo a reciclar, más o menos. En mi casa casi soy intensa.
Monica hopes a difficult moment in Bogotá's history can serve as a lesson for the rest of the world.
Que yo sé que esa no es la solución de quitarte algo y decir.
I know the solution isn't to just take something away and tell people you'll have your water rationed 3 times a week.
Es amenazado de que te van a quitar algo.
But people don't wake up until they're threatened with losing something.
Y pueden sacar mil de remedios.
We can come up with countless solutions, just like with cancer or any other disease, but none of it will work until people realize they're wasting something precious.
De que estás haciendo algo mal y lo estás desperdiciando. Aspiro y espero en 2 meses que esto.
I hope my water usage decreases so that others can access water.
Que siga ahorrando o que gaste el agua que yo no gasté.
I'm Elaine Reyes at UN headquarters in New York. Thanks for being a UN Insider. I'm Elaine Reyes at the United Nations headquarters in New York, and this is a special edition of UN Insider.
UN Insider serves as an important window for the global audience to better understand multilateral diplomacy.
It's very important for the media to cover the United Nations, to seek to understand and tell the story in ways that the average person in the street can understand.
I think it's very important that the media should contribute to conveying important messages about the reality of today's challenges.
UN Insider has come to the UN, and we at the UN are so grateful to have it here. It is the only dedicated TV program to what is happening in the UN, and it is reaching so many people with, as it says in its title, inside the UN stories.
Media plays an important role in providing objective information across the world.
We think that media has a strong power of uplifting, what we are trying to convey as messages as developing countries.
We need the mobilization of all peoples, of whole government and whole of society, and media can help us to be informed so that we also can make our part.
I think the media is fundamental to enable citizens across the world, first of all, to understand what is the rationale of having the United Nations. It's not that there is one place on planet Earth that will tell the rest of the world what to do. It is a much more complex story.